Hello and welcome to Ace Martial Arts Interviews. I'm Daewoud. This interview is with strength and conditioning specialist Shannon Green. I've known Shannon for nearly 20 years. It's been a privilege having Shannon as my personal trainer, a colleague, but most importantly, he's a good friend. Shannon is by far one of Australia's best and most knowledgeable strength and conditioning coaches. But what many people don't know, that he's also a martial artist. I hope you enjoy my chat with Shannon Green. Shannon, thanks for joining me and Ace Martial Arts Interviews. How are you doing?
Good, mate. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. So this is how we're doing the interview and the podcast now due to the COVID-19 virus, but this is much safer for me, so I can ask you questions and there'll be no dramas.
Yeah.
And for people that are watching us, can you please introduce your friend by your side?
This is me, mate. This is Bulldog Otis. He's an Aussie Bulldog. He's 4 years old.
Otis.
And he's keeping a watchful eye on what's going on, making sure you don't act up.
Okay, and people can follow Otis apparently online. Does he have his own Facebook page?
George and Otis on Instagram.
All right. If you like dogs or bulldogs, George and Otis. I don't think I even have an Instagram fan page yet. So Shannon, you're about 21 years old when you started getting into exercise in general. And from what I remember, a friend of yours took you to the gym and got you hooked to training. Can you elaborate a bit about that story and how it sort of linked to martial arts?
So, I think I probably started training when I was about 18, started lifting weights. And then always me and my friends mucked around with a bit of boxing and stuff like that. So then I started, it was before I went to Double Dragon, spent sort of 6 months with a sort of boxing coach, a guy that just knew a bit of boxing anyway. Once I got to Double Dragon, found out that Mick tore my stuff apart. But so I did that for about 6 months, and then me and a mate had been talking about going to Double Dragon, and we were actually intimidated a little bit about just going in there because we knew there was a lot of good fighters. Go to that gym had a good reputation, and you sort of, if you've never really been in a martial arts gym, you get a bit scared. But like once you get over the threshold and go through the door, it's a completely different environment. But needless to say, we did a beginner's class, and I never left. I stayed and trained there till, I don't know, maybe 2010, I guess, from maybe 99. Had a fight, had a couple of exhibitions, competed in jiu-jitsu, trained for about 3 or 4 MMA fights, and then people pull out at the last minute. That was always fun. But that was my beginning into martial arts, was obviously walking into Double Dragon. And the coach on the first night was actually Dr. Luke Del Vecchio, who was my very first kickboxing coach.
One of our colleagues and mates, yes.
And that was actually a good experience because Luke's a very smart dude. So just in the kickboxing classes alone, you learn a lot. So.
Yes. So Double Dragon at the time was founded by Mick Spinks, who was one of the pioneers in Australian martial arts and kickboxing. So for you to come from backyard boxing and to see the way Mick Spinks was teaching, that must have been huge for you. Yeah.
And then Mick was very pedantic about technique and drilling technique. And it was good. Basically, I was standing southpaw and he's like, "What are you, right-handed or left-handed?" I'm like, "Right-handed." He goes, "Hey, mate, you're supposed to be orthodox." I was like, "Oh, no, that's just how I stood because I used to skate goofy and surf goofy." So for me, having that foot forward was fine, you know. But then, so anyway, started doing that and then kept training there. And then eventually I became a PT at Fitness First. And then I was there for about a year and a half. And then I spoke to Mick and wanted me to bring me in and start doing strength and conditioning with the fighters. And at the same time, I got a job with Randwick Rugby Union, their development squad team. So I was a strength coach for there for a year. And then so I left fitness first, and then went to solely work out a Double Dragon, and then do some strength and conditioning coaching on the side with the football teams. And yeah, and then from there, I think I just started in jiu-jitsu as well.
I'm still stuck on the comment you said earlier that you were on skateboards and surfboards. I cannot imagine you on a skateboard.
Yeah, I was a skateboarder, surfer,
Wow.
snow ski, snowboard, water skied, wakeboarded, did all that stuff.
Wow, you've really changed.
Yeah, skating was my, I used to skate a lot. So
When was the last time you jumped on a skateboard, Shannon?
actually a couple of years ago. I did
Oh,
a
right.
kickflip. It was dodgy. I think the board was going to snap. Would have been about 5 years ago now, but yeah.
When you were about 120 kilos. Is it true you were about 55 kilos when you were a young adult?
Yeah, so when I was 18, when I first started training, I weighed in at 55 kilos. So it was just skin and bones.
So you were lighter than the skateboard itself.
Yes, exactly.
So from there, can you tell me when what made you become interested in martial arts and boxing? What was there when you were growing up? Was it a movie? Was it someone?
Oh, Van Damme.
Yeah,
like
good old Van Damme.
Piqued my interest, you know what I mean? Straight away, all the Van Damme movies. The amount of times I watched Kickboxer and Bloodsport, and you know, and even obviously Karate Kid when that came out. And that was, everyone wanted to do karate. When I was younger, I did a couple of karate lessons. I think I did a couple of judo lessons, but I never really got into it serious. I was too serious into skateboarding then, so nothing else really mattered at that time.
Yeah.
But then once I started doing the boxing, but I always really liked kickboxing, so enjoyed watching the fights, the K1, the A1, all that. At that time in Australia, there was an awesome kickboxing scene. The McKinnons, what's his name,
Zambides.
Yeah, Mike Zambides, Iron Mike. So it was.
There's some good fighters.
Good time in kickboxing. It was a real good time in kickboxing.
I remember watching Van Damme like yourself, and all I could do is practice that spinning heel kick he did. I'd fast forward on the VCR, press stop, and try and learn the spinning heel kick. And I'd always end up on my ass until one day my Uncle George, who was a martial artist from Melbourne, I begged him, please teach me the kick. And he said, why don't you learn how to punch first? I said, no, just the kick, just that one kick. And so you went from fitness, you were enthusiastic about your fitness and your weight training, got into martial arts and became a PT, and then you became very serious in strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
And then from there, you started training combat athletes. So some of the fighters at Double Dragon, and I guess even to this day, you're quite passionate about your strength and conditioning and your combat athletes. With all the study you did, you traveled around the world and trained with some great strength coaches. What are the first things you did to change the way combat athletes were training? Because I know there's a lot of old school methodologies out there, and you're a modern S&C coach. What were the first things you implemented and changed in strength and conditioning for the combat athletes you were working with?
Not abolishing heavy training. A lot of guys get hung up and think like heavy weights will make you slow, or I associate weight training with bodybuilding, and if you trained like a professional bodybuilder, that's definitely not conducive to being a fighter. But it will slow you down in a sense because you're training in that pattern, but that doesn't mean you're slow, because speed is genetic essentially too. You know, you can only train your speed so much. You either have it or you don't. Mm-hmm. So like it may slow you down for a period of time if you're fatigued or whatever, but that'll always come back. It just depends what you choose. People switch between different sports all the time, and the human body adapts and changes. So the fact that it is number one is just keeping strength in their program and getting them stronger, you know, like force times mass acceleration. Do you know what I mean? Like the force velocity curve. Mm-hmm. To really hit that peak, you need a certain amount of strength. So and we ended up doing research with Dr. Luke that sort of brought this to light, but getting stronger in your bench press can make you hit harder.
And that seems unlikely when you think about it, but once we did the study, which I was also involved with, it was amazing to see the improvements. And a lot of
combat athletes over the years have been afraid of touching weight, and still today, it's a stigma. It's hard to shake for many coaches out there.
Yeah, but it's just about doing the right amount of weight training too. Like some people then think, oh, if you want to do strength training, you're trying to become a power lifter, and it's like you can't do powerlifting training and be a fighter. Like they're two different ends of the spectrum, but there is good things in powerlifting and in bodybuilding that you can take it and put into strength and conditioning essentially. So for the combat athletes, I guess my biggest thing I had to do with them is actually hold them back from themselves. Because they're usually strong-minded people. You're used to getting in deep in, gassing in the ring and still having to punch on. So it teaches you a decent amount of resilience. The guys like to push hard. I mean, you're jumping in a ring and you're fucking punching your mate in the head, like you got a few screws loose, you know what I mean? You like to push the limit a bit, you know what I mean? You're not sitting back doing a yoga class. So when you get those guys in the weights room, they want to treat the weights like they want to try and just destroy them.
They want to smash it. They want to smash it out,
that's what's going to actually take away from your fight training. You need to mix in the right amount of strength training with the right amount of conditioning, and obviously put them in a fashion that then it peaks the person for their competition as well. So, I mean, the job of a strength coach, essentially strength and conditioning coach in any sport, is first and foremost is injury prevention. So always look at the programs from an injury perspective. How can I stop this athlete getting injured? What are the common injuries he has? Is he complaining about is he getting sore when he's waking up from sleeping? Has he got back issues? All these little things that are going to stop him training or are going to maybe bring down the intensity on his training. Do you know what I mean? Because because they're just pushing too hard. So you need to factor all those things in and calculate the training within that. So that's the tricky part of it. That's where a lot of people get it wrong. They try and, here's a powerlifting program, I'm going to do that to get stronger. And then it's like, powerlifter doesn't do anything else but powerlifting.
Yeah.
If you're an MMA fighter, you've got grappling in there. You got BJJ, you got wrestling, you got kickboxing, boxing. You've also got sparring in each other discipline. Like there's a lot of things that are going on. And obviously for a kickboxer, you've got a lot of kickboxing training. You've got all your sprinting. You've got all your sparring and all that sort of stuff. So all of that stuff, it takes energy away from what you can do. So you need to take some of that training away and put in some strength training, but you've got to figure out the right amount for that person too.
And obviously apply recovery strategies and appropriate nutrition, which seems lost with lots of athletes out there.
Again, that's like, they're not, a lot of them, I mean, with the UFC, there's definitely a lot of people that have got better fighters with nutrition instead of just drinking milk and starving themselves to make weight. So nutrition obviously can help that as well. So obviously making sure that they have enough fuel in their body so that they can burn that fuel during the session. There's a lot of fighters will be starving themselves and then trying to train and not realizing that you need to put nutrients in your mouth to go into those muscles to sustain those muscle contractions. You're just going to reduce your fitness if you're not well fed or well hydrated. So there's obviously a balance with that as well, because obviously you don't want to feed them too much food because they're in a weight class sport and you don't want them gaining weight. You don't want to feed them too little that then they can't perform in the gym and then they suck on competition day.
And who are some of these combat athletes that you've trained? Any that some might know about?
Probably the biggest one was probably Robert Whittaker. So once he left the Ultimate Fighter house, I trained him, I think, for his last fight when he was whatever it is, middleweight. I always forget what it's called. I think it was a middleweight,
Oh, wow.
Manny Rodriguez. So he was in the Ultimate Fighter house with Rob. I trained Manny for many years.
And he got very strong from memory.
A very dominant MMA fighter in his time. He's just unfortunate that he broke his leg in the Ultimate Fighter series, and then he still fought half that fight with the crack in his shin. So it's a tough bastard, but after that, he just was a tough break. But he's dynamite strong. He's probably one of the strongest pound-for-pound fighters I've had in there. Trained Ian Schaffer.
Oh, yes.
So
Well, a very dangerous
They
group of
were
fighters in those 3
and
years.
Ian was a beast.
I've
Junior
been punched
Talapo,
in the
the
face by
boxer.
Ian a few times. Yes, I used to look
Junior,
much better than this.
Junior Talapo, the boxer.
Yep.
Um, Diego Bartelo, who was he's a judo guy that used to Brazilian judo guy that used to travel around and compete in the base of the Pan Pacific circuit. So he was a very, very strong guy as well. Bernardo Treco.
What a list. We might have to interview some of these guys. Yeah.
Bartez. A lot. Yeah, there was a lot. There's probably a lot more that I'm forgetting.
That's okay. Well, look.
And it's definitely a lot of guys. But training them was fun.
Yeah.
It was good.
Fantastic. Yeah. Now, for the martial artist person that just doesn't fight, what advice would you give them when it comes to improving their training, going for a grading, just their sparring? Similar to a fighter, I guess, to do strength training. Any tips? Yeah. Or even for fighters out there, amateur fighters, any tips for them? What would you say?
Generally, like if it's a fighter, I'm just going to say 2 to 3 weight sessions a week is the most. Don't try and push it more than that, unless they're doing sort of smaller sessions that they're subbing in between if they're training multiple times a day. But generally, we've got guys at the gym who train a bit of powerlifting and do a bit of BJJ as well. And those guys, I think, get their best results, again, from training 2 to 3 times per week with weight and then training, another 2 to 4 times per week in their martial art. Seems to be a pretty good balance. But if you're going to train hard, just make sure that you recover hard as well. That's probably one of the biggest things. Most people don't pay attention to their sleep. They try and burn the candle at both ends. Work's highly stressed. They're not putting enough nutrition in their body. They're sleeping poor, or their quality of sleep, or they're waking up during the night, or they're going to bed late, waking up early. All those things are going to impact your recovery and then your sessions. And you're not going to be able to put the same output in the session. And then you're also not going to get the same recovery from the session. So you're just limiting how effective your training is. So focusing on your recovery and making sure your recovery is spot on so that you can train hard when you go to the gym. And
beautiful. People
looking at that don't look at nutrition need to look at it, because think of it as, this is what's going to help me train better. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to feel better going into each session, especially if you're sparring, you're going to get hit in the head. You don't want to have a lack of energy. You want to be pumped up and ready to go.
And it's something you shouldn't wing it. Nutrition, people wing it. They have their 3 meals a day and they're not taking any note of what they're actually eating, how beneficial it is for them. And there needs to be a lot of education in that space for people that are, especially athletes, or I think general public, but athletes. If you wing it, you don't know what's going into your body, and if you don't know what you're eating, and you can't track your performance and your energy levels, it's going to be a recipe for disaster, effectively, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just tracking what you're eating and understanding what you're putting in your mouth each day can pay big dividends. Most people just don't pay attention to that. They're like, oh, I don't want to weigh and measure, and I don't want to track food. But it's like, that's just like saying, I don't want to look at my bank account. I'm just going to use my credit card and spend. Like it's not a long-term strategy.
What's wrong with that? No, that's.
But yeah, you wouldn't do it in anything else, but you do it with food,
Yeah, absolutely.
Just not paying attention to what you're doing.
So when you were training, Shannon, what was your favorite part of the training? Was it the sparring, the bag work, the drills? What did you love about it the most? The fitness?
Sparring, 100% sparring.
Yeah, sparring. Well, and you've recently started putting the gloves back on, so you got a few goals.
Did a few before we got shut down with Corona, but no, it's good. Just trying to get my fitness back up now, and just trying to reinvigorate some old pathways, mate. The old kickboxing. Just changing the training up. I mean, I did kickboxing for ages, and then I went into BJJ, and then I went into strongman, and I went from strongman to competing in bench press, and then so now I'm just going back to my martial arts roots and just trying to do a bit more of that training and have a bit of fun.
And how has martial arts improved and impacted your life?
Massively. I mean, it taught me, number one, taught me discipline, self-control, definitely how to manage my anger, which was a big one.
See, I'm shocked. I'm shocked by that. I can never imagine you angry, raising your voice. Everyone that trains with you are listening and watching this episode. Shocked as I am.
I'm a happy guy.
Okay, so yeah. Okay. Anything else? So the discipline, the anger management. Yeah.
Yeah, just better in general. Obviously, just making you feel better, fitter. I mean, it feels great when you're fit, you know?
Yeah, fantastic.
Pretty much when you're in really good shape and you can pretty much do anything, it's an awesome feeling as well.
And did you ever have a favorite combat athlete, a favorite boxer or kickboxer or MMA fighter? You said Van Damme, and there's nothing wrong with saying Van Damme if he influenced your martial arts thing, but do you follow any?
Yeah, so definitely probably my favorite MMA fighter would have been Georges St. Pierre, just because of his adaptability and the way that he often changed and was able to keep evolving through the sport. Kickboxer. Oh, man, there were so many good ones.
Yes.
Crow Cop.
Yeah, I'll let it. A great kicker. Amazing. Mirko,
Okay, Crow Cop, definitely. He was just an animal.
Yeah, his head kick was just unbelievable. He threw that left head kick beautifully and didn't show it. Yeah, fantastic.
And then boxer, probably Tyson.
It's got to be Tyson.
He's just a nugget, just so powerful. Like
that's it. and for you, if you had to pick, punching or kicking?
I like kicking.
Oh, right. You like kicking?
I like kicking. Kicking's good. So I like kickboxing over boxing.
Yeah, so kicking's your
I still enjoy punching, but I like kicking was good. Kick sparring was fun.
Kick sparring. All right. Well, look, when you are having surgery, you've got some issues with your knees.
Yep.
Is it possible for you to be able to kick again, or that those days are over?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, I could still kick now.
Yeah.
But I just wouldn't want to be doing heavy rounds of kicking. But yeah, definitely once I get my knees done, that's it's definitely one thing I want to be able to do is get back in and be sparring again, sparring in kickboxing, sparring in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, I think an old friend of yours, Stan, he put his hand up first to be in the ring with you, so he's he's been out of it for a while too. But anyway, look, thanks for dialing in, the old term dialing in for this just quick chat. A lot of people, and the goal for me is to speak to many people that have been influenced by martial arts and work in different careers. But you run a successful strength and conditioning gym in Sydney called Warrior Performance. You train all athletes, correct? From powerlifting to bodybuilders.
I've trained Ironmen, cyclists, sprinters, rowers, powerlifters, strongmen, Highland athletes. So, yeah, a lot of athletes across the board.
So you're an S&C coach. You've got a good partnership with a sports scientist, with Dr. Luke. So for anyone interested, they can contact you on your website at warriorperformance.com.au. And again, it's any sport or any athlete can benefit from your training. And do you offer any online services?
Yeah, we do. We do online coaching as well. So, just depends on what level the person's at. Online coaching can be a bit tricky if you've never done any sort of training before to take the instruction. But again, if someone's got a good athletic background, sometimes they can pick up those verbal cues quite easily.
Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, definitely do online training. And then obviously face-to-face, but not at the moment.
Remember those days, the old face-to-face days? Where you could shake hands with someone? Okay, Shannon, thanks for your time. And look forward to working with you in our Business Australian Combat and Exercise. So for those that don't know, Shannon also is a our head presenter in our technical lifting course and our other business. But today was solely about martial arts, one of both our common interests. Thanks again, Shannon. And
Thank you.
we'll see you soon.
See you, mate. Thanks.
Cut.